Universally, COVID has been tough. You'd be hard-pressed to find even a single person on Earth who has not had some COVID-induced heartache to deal with over the past 18 months. But as is always the way with the human experience, there is always someone who's had it way worse than you. Meet Molly. Molly is an Aussie kid who, in a chronically cruel twist of fate, was struck down by a cancer diagnosis. It's unfair, it's nonsensical, but the harsh reality is these things happen. And it's imperative that their stories be told.
I noticed a lump on my upper right thigh. I had an appointment with the doctors who were a little concerned, and they said, we'll do an ultrasound. So I got an ultrasound done and then an MRI. The biopsy results came back and it was pretty shocking at the start. I did not expect that I would be diagnosed with cancer.
And Molly is not alone. She's just one of a tragic many.
I was sent to Sydney and went for my first MRI, and they found 4 lesions in the temporal of my brain.
Driving home with Mum and Dad, it really sunk in, and I just completely was bawling my eyes out. I couldn't believe it had happened at all at my age, and it was one of the first times I really saw Dad tearing up over something.
Now, to be easy to sit back and lament the woes of an unfair universe, or to ask why such a callous hand is dealt to a young person in the prime of their life. But this is where we need strong people to help them out. Strong people to step up and provide some solace to the suffering. For Molly, that person is Sophie Ryan. Seeing the logistical and financial nightmare that regional families were navigating for life-saving treatment, the Sony Foundation's You Can Stay program was established. Free accommodation for young regional cancer sufferers and their families.
What You Can Stay is all about is providing completely free accommodation for these families. They're also available within 24 hours notice. So we know that some young families, they may get a terrible result, or their young person falls sick quite quickly and they've got to jump in a car and drive 6 to 8 hours to get to a hospital quickly. They don't have the time to then start Googling and searching for affordable accommodation. We hear of stories of when it's school holidays, accommodation is so hard to find, and You Can Stay becomes this haven that they know that they can access this accommodation at no cost to the family, and they can access it very quickly. And the other important thing about this is that because it's a serviced apartment, it means that they can access all the essential items that they need, like a kitchen and a laundry and a safe, clean space for them and their family and their young person that's got cancer. And there's no cap on the number of nights that they can stay.
And the results? Well, they speak for themselves.
I did have to go to Melbourne, so the immediate thought in my head was, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to drive to Melbourne every single day, which means Mum and Dad are going to have to take time off work, and it would just be so exhausting. So it was about a day later that I actually got a phone call from the Sony Foundation, and they said to me that they have this program called You Can Stay. So if you're between 15 and 25 and you live over 100 kilometres from the hospital, then you can stay up in Melbourne for the duration of your treatment. So that was just our saving grace, to be honest.
It really is a case of community rallying together to make sure that nobody walks through their darkest hour without a hand to hold. And the good people of Quest Apartments, they were more than happy to make that happen.
We offer a home away from home. We have 140 Quest properties located across the country in regional, suburban and CBD locations. And they're all run and operated by business owners, and generally they're husbands and wives, mothers and fathers, invested in that business, and they've opened up their doors to look after this requirement because we felt it was appropriate, particularly during the pandemic and the stress and strain that not only every Australian's felt during the last 20 months, but heaven help a family who's struggling to deal with their loved one who has significant need for life-saving treatment, to find a way to do that, to get their loved one much needed help. And then to throw on top of that the financial constraints and the burden of making ends meet on a day-to-day basis on top of the pandemic, we felt we had no obligation but to step in and help.
Families used words like it was just a godsend, or we just couldn't have done without it. And I think it was the emotional sense of engagement with the relief of this program.
So the next time COVID has you down, think of people like Molly and her mates. Their bravery, their fight, and their unbridled courage. And think of those amongst us who are fighting day and night to make sure that when all is said and done, these kids have somewhere to call home amid the chaos. Sophie Ryan, you saw in that package as the CEO of the Sony Foundation, and she joins us now for a bit more of a chat. Sophie, nice to see you, mate.
Good to see you too, Paul.
Well, what a year, eh? Now, let's talk about, the logistics and everything, when travel is so hard, when, all of the basics. Help me out about the type of year behind the scenes when you're trying to offer this help to people about what it's been like.
Yeah, we actually started to launch You Can Stay as COVID was unfolding across the country. It was something that we knew was already an issue. Regional patients have to travel for accommodation. There's a massive gap, as you heard in the story. We needed to be able to provide free accommodation to these families that had to travel for treatment. Then roll on COVID, and all of those hardships that were there became ever so more pronounced. Not only was there a shortage of accommodation due to a lot of hotels transforming into quarantine hotels, but then on top of that, they also weren't clean, safe places to be. These were young, scared patients that were immune compromised. They couldn't be at any risk of any exposure. And so our Quest departments became even more important because we knew that these youth cancer patients and their families is needed to be able to access this really safe accommodation and also access it quickly.
How many people were you able to help in the past little while?
So we piloted for our first year. For the first 12 months, we did over 5,500 nights of accommodation.
Wow.
For 77 families.
Wow.
So big numbers, but what we found was that we're only actually accessing 30% of the young people that need this service. So while we've provided a lot of nights, we know that the need out there is huge.
Again, what I really love about what you do, and we've had the chance to talk in person and sadly over Zoom too many times, but is that the focus is 15 to 25? Because understandably, there's lots of programs for really little kids, and that's heartbreaking. But also, you don't want a scenario where as soon as it's 18, bang, cut off, you're now counted as an adult. There's no difference between an 18-year-old and 38-year-old. The idea of keeping it to 25, that really is your youth, and it's such the formative period of time. How important has that been to make sure that there is a span of certainty for, say, a kid who's 17 to know that all of this might be there for them when they're 19?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you've been to our UCAN centre that's actually soon to open at Chris O'Brien. Awesome. And that's how this all came about. Our UCAN program was, as you said, all about trying to bridge the gap between our paediatric and our adults hospital system. In Australia, we have fabulous paediatric systems across the country. If you're a child that's diagnosed with cancer, you can access these wonderful children's hospitals. But you turn 16, sometimes 17, and you're transferred into the adult hospital. And as you said, Paul, there is a massive gap. These are not yet adults. They need access to specialised services and also the support that's provided to paediatric patients. So we've been building these youth cancer centres. We call them UCAN centres in adult hospitals around the country. And they provide a real haven. They provide an important place where young people are treated alongside other young people. But we know that they can only be in the cities because a huge majority of youth cancer patients that are from the regions end up travelling to the city for treatment. And that's why we then stepped up and said, well, what can we do for regional patients? And we knew accommodation was such an important service that was needed. And we know that there's great services in the paediatric setting, fabulous organisations like Ronald McDonald House that provide that accommodation for country families, but you get into the adult system and those services drop away.
Good on you, Sophie. All the best to everyone in the project. And, again, congratulations.
Thanks, Paul.